Hi, my name is Aubrey Meindertsma, and today I'm going to show you how to fit an English saddle to a horse. This is my horse May, who I've been using for fair for a couple years, and I'm going to be fitting my English saddle to her. So the first thing you want to do is put your saddle on your horse without a blanket or a girth to see where your saddle lays without anything interfering with it fitting to the shape of your horse's body. So what I'm going to do is kind of slide it up on her neck a little bit and then let it fall back to where it would naturally sit, which is about right there. And the first thing I want to look at is if my saddle is balanced. So one thing you can do is press on the back of your saddle and the front of your saddle and see if your saddle has a tendency to rock forward or backward, which this one is pretty even. And then I'm going to look at kind of the deepest point of the seat of my saddle and see if it's parallel to the ground. So that's about right here. And I'm just looking at that because then I can see that my saddle is not tilted forward and deeper in the front or tilted backward and deeper in the back. I'm looking to see that my saddle sits nice and balanced on my horse. The next thing I'm going to look at is whether there's enough space right here between the pommel of my saddle and my horse's withers. So there should be about 2 to 3 fingers, which I have about 3 fingers in there, which is plenty of room. We look at this because we don't want the front of the saddle resting and pushing against our horse's withers. The next thing I'm going to look at is the gullet of the saddle, and I want there to be space in here throughout the whole of the saddle all the way to the back. There should be an open space so that the top of my saddle is not resting on my horse's spine, because that can be super uncomfortable. I'm also looking at these panels right here on the saddle, and what we want to look for is even pressure all the way from the front to the back on my saddle, so there's not a heavier amount of pressure in one space and less pressure in another, because it can be really easy for your saddle to have pressure points and press down really hard, maybe on the front or on the back, and that is really uncomfortable too when there's not even pressure throughout my saddle. The next thing I'm going to look at is these side panels right here, and these should be parallel to my horse's shoulder all the way down, so it's creating an even pressure on my saddle right here, which mine looks like it is. It's not more off the top or more off the bottom. And I also want to make sure up here by my horse's shoulder that her shoulder has space to move, because it's very common for saddles to be resting really hard on our horse's shoulders, which can restrict movement when we're riding. And the next thing I want to look at is behind the saddle back here to make sure there's no pressure on the loin of my horse, because that can be really uncomfortable for our horses if our saddle goes back here and is creating pressure. The next thing I'm going to look at is these straps, these billets under here, and these should be pretty perpendicular to the ground, because our girth connects on here, and we don't want our girth to be sliding forward or sliding backward. We want it to be perpendicular right here. So this saddle fits her pretty well, but a few things I would notice if it didn't fit her well would be if my saddle was tilted up at the front and creating more pressure on the back. I would see that the deepest point of the seat was not parallel to the ground, but it was kind of at an angle. And then another way it could not fit her very well would be if it was up like this, which this is not good because it creates some pretty hard pressure points on the front of the saddle by her shoulder, and it also can restrict movement in her shoulder if there's more pressure and more saddle pushing down up here. So, thank you for watching this video, and I hope you learned something about how to fit an English saddle to a horse.